So that's another issue. If this war kicks off, what will it look like if it starts in a regional deal, dominoes, gets out of control like World War I or other events? We're going to see some space war, aren't we?
We are, but only after I think we absorb a nuclear first strike. Here's how I think it's going to come down, Alex. The trigger event has to be North Korea. North Korea is the most rogue element in the world, and yet it's being given a pass by the U.S. We don't do anything to stop its nuclear progress, unlike Iran. And Iran is being set up, by the way, for failure of this current agreement so that the U.S. can attack. That was put out in a Brookings Institution piece in 2009, where they said, you know what the U.S. needs to do is bend over backwards to give them a peace deal, have them violate it so that it appears as if we didn't want this war, but Iran really slapped us in the face over this. I think that's what Iran's being set up for. That will not turn into World War III because Russia and China, it's too early. They aren't ready to go to Third World War over Iran. That will be done to consolidate Israel's hegemony over the Middle East, and the hatred of both the U.S. and Israel will increase dramatically, which feeds the excuse that Russia and China need eventually to take down the bully of the world. But the trigger event, I believe, will be North Korea. When you see a North Korean launched against the South, and they do some minor military attack every year, so you've got to be careful not to confuse those with a major artillery barrage on Seoul. If that ever starts, you know you're days away from nuclear war. People ought to get out of the cities that are major nuclear targets, like Seattle, Washington, D.C.
When we come back, tell us how the war games, it's not just your analysis. This is what a lot of the big think tanks admit. That's why the main force is to Asia. I get frustrated. People ask why I get mad at football. Well, they just obsess over the family of one quarterback and the other quarterback's family and what they eat for dinner and what they're into. And it's all the military mind of man being projected onto something that doesn't matter. Like we're studying thermonuclear war. We're studying geopolitics. We're studying the stock market. We're studying the mindset of the elite. We're studying what's in the vaccines. We're studying... People think that's weird, like studying real things, even though in the real world you can make a lot of money just in business knowing this stuff. This is how the elite think, except it's from their perspective. And then we try to spend time learning how the real world works, and it's weird. That's why I get very upset about the things of a child. It'd be one thing if you went to a ball game because your kid's in it or you liked a sports team, but when it becomes God, it becomes a Romanesque, gladiatorial evil, and that's what makes me sick. We got 4 minutes left, Joel Skousen. Thank you so much for the time. You've got the floor. Break down why you say Korea is the trigger. Most other big analysts agree with that, by the way. If it ever kicks off with China, how that would unfold and why we've pivoted to the Pacific and where that's going.
Well, in the first place, the pivot to the Pacific is really only about a 10% increase in assets. It's not enough to deter China. It's just a mere facade. It's a little bit of political theater. There has to be a reason why North Korea has been preserved. That's why I say it's got to be the trigger. In other words, Iran, they've fumed, they've threatened, the military options on the table, they want regime change, we infiltrate, we use covert operations. We do none of that with North Korea. In fact, we've guaranteed them no regime change and no military options on the table. Why? They're the most awful, god-awful regime in the world, and yet we do nothing. And that's it can only be because the globalists know that they are the puppet of China and that they will be the trigger. Here's how I think it's going down. I think there will be an attack against South Korea. The North Koreans have over 2 million troops, 20,000 artillery tubes. They can level Seoul in a matter of 3 or 4 days. The only way the U.S. can stop that attack from taking over the South is using tactical nuclear weapons. And that would give China the excuse then to nuke the United States. U.S. is guilty of first use. The U.S. is the bully of the world. Russia and Chinese unite to launch against U.S. military targets, not civilian targets per se. There will be about 12 to 15 cities that are inextricably connected with the military that we're going to get hit, like I've mentioned in strategic relocation. You don't want to be in those cities when this attack comes. You may have 2 days' notice when that attack in Korea starts before China launches on the United States. And if you ever see everything black out, because both Russia and China will use a preemptive nuclear or EMP strike, electromagnetic pulse strike, to take down the grid before the nukes actually fall. So anytime you see all electricity out and no news, nothing at all, that's the time you need to be getting out of those cities before the panic hits.
Joel, we got about 5 minutes left here. I want you to finish up with the scenario. We cover it in the film, Strategic Relocation. It's in your book. They're both available. The film exclusively at InfoWarsStore.com. And it's just invaluable film to watch, invaluable book to have. And when you've studied the country and the world, it's just incredible how much you've traveled. This is something everybody should be thinking about in this insane world. But finishing up with the scenario of the super weapons then being rolled out.
That's right. In other words, there are secret black budget weapons that the U.S. has been developing for years, and they have not revealed to the American people and will not be used to defend us against this nuclear first strike. PDD-60 was signed by President Clinton, which instructed our nuclear forces to be prepared to retaliate only after absorbing a nuclear first strike. General Butch Neal of the Marine Corps said, retaliate with what? After you've absorbed it. And that's exactly what the globalists want. Now, our missile forces still intend and still think they're going to get the orders to launch on warning. And launch on warning is a very important tactic. It means that the one who launches first, actually his missiles, because they're ballistic, end up attacking silos that are empty. If we've launched before their missiles arrive on our soil, we launch our missiles, then the one who launches second is the one who gets the most damage done to the other side. But if we absorb that nuclear first strike, all of our missiles in the silos will be hit. We won't have anything to retaliate with except half of our nuclear submarines, which are being downgraded from 20 missiles now to 14. They are dismantling, disarming, even as the Russians are building new submarines.
You can see the total setup taking place on every front. And what do you make of 36 of the silo commanders fired, almost all the top brass over the missiles? I mean, I was told by a high-level source about missing nukes at Dias. That's a real story. I mean, what does all that mean?
Well, this stuff has actually been going on for a long time, and the nuclear missile force has been in disarray, and there's been a lot of disgruntled officers that stand watch for days at a time. I mean, it's not a decent assignment anymore. So there has been cheating on their exams. There has been some drug use and other things. It's only being brought out now because the press is getting ready to make a major push against we don't need all these nuclear missiles and to degrade and to sell more disarmament. As I say, it's disingenuous when you don't include Red China. If you only have deals with Russia and Red China's still out there, I mean, this shows that it's a sham.